Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and I have, we can't keep him from buying businesses. He just can't stop. He's famous. We really appreciate him coming down to do our little lonely podcast. Patrick, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. I'm excited. I'm trying to do a lot more business owners, private equity, people that are looking to buy business on this podcast. So it's exciting for me. Real estate is where I cut my teeth. That's where a lot of my guests come from. So it's nice to let people know that people with families and regular people and all that sort of stuff can buy businesses. And that's what we're going to talk about today. But what I like to do with my guests is let them start their story where they want to, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds great. Thank you for having me. My quick bio, I'm 14 months into being an acquisition entrepreneur now. So I bought an accounting firm 14 months back, and since then have bought two more. Prior to that, I spent 10 years working with small business. 7 of those were sales leadership role in a digital marketing company. And then I spent 3 years doing small business advisory and coaching. And how this came about, I heard about people that go and buy small businesses. Meanwhile, I was doing, advisory and coaching work with 40 small businesses, and they'd always have terrible bookkeeping. And we're always referring it out. And I just saw how transformational that was to have real good quality bookkeeping. So I said, why don't I just go buy a bookkeeping firm? And here we are. So, it's been a wild journey since then. The team size has doubled, and revenues jumped a lot, and it's an exciting time to be in this space, and happy to dig in more with you about that today.
So everybody says, oh, you gotta start a business, or you gotta leave your W-2, or you were in the W-2 space for quite a while.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite. I think that the W-2 space sets you up with the skills necessary on somebody else's dime to then go take your chance when it's time for you. As you look back, now you're the boss, now you're the big boss. What lessons do you think you took away from that time in your W-2 that really have served you as the leader and owner of these businesses?
Yeah, as I was a sales leader for 7 years, we were interacting with a lot of small businesses, and you see patterns, right? You see some that are crushing it, you see some that are struggling. And then when I was doing small business advisory, you really see some patterns there of, some people get good at their craft and they can get up to a certain revenue size and they stall out, or, they get to a certain size and then they can't figure out how to hire help and they stall out, right? Or, priority management and time management becomes a huge challenge, right? So I feel like I learned those things well in my sales background and in my, coaching that I was doing. And if you look at accounting firms, most accounting firm owners are not good at the things that I'm good at. I'm good at sales, recruiting, like big picture, staying out of the weeds. So I feel like that set me up well. It's my strength and my weakness that I can't get into the day-to-day. But I think anyone looking to do this, whatever industry, in some ways, I think buying a good, solid business is less risky than, trying to build something from scratch and create the next, tech company or the next product on Shark Tank or something like that.
No, 100%. I agree with you. So when you set out on this process, were you forced? Was it an opportunity that you built up towards? How did you get your wife on board? Like when you're gearing up for this purchase, which is going to be a life-shifting thing for the family and for yourself.
Right. So I started to explore it, and there's a couple of books that are key books to read. You read Harvard Guide to Buying a Small Business. I read that. There's another one, Buy Then Build, I didn't hear about till afterwards. And then I started listening to a lot of podcasts with folks in this space. And the more I explored it and looked at it, the more appealing it became to me. You know, it has recurring revenue, solid margin, sticky clients. It's recession resistant. So for me, I'm a logical person. So I kind of became rooted in like, okay, like here's what the financials would look like, and here's the type of business that I'm looking for. And the more I could, you know, peel away at that and get excited, it told me that there was something there. And at the very end, you know, it was a 10 or 11 month journey to find one and get ready to close. My wife's brilliant. She's a veterinarian. She's medical mind. She's not financial. And at the very end, I was like, okay, you need to understand what I'm signing here. Like, if this doesn't go well, we're bankrupt. Like, we're living with the parents for a while, you know? And she was like, okay. She's like, I don't, you know, I don't fully understand it, but I always pictured you doing this. So, yeah. So, and you know, it's still a roller coaster daily, right? You have times where like,
We have all the money. Or I'm gonna have to go
I'm broke,
Uber driver.
I'm rich,
Yeah.
I'm broke, I'm rich, you know, all my team is going to leave. I have the greatest team in the world, right? So it's quite the roller coaster.
So it took you 10, 11 months to find a business.
Yeah.
I wish I could, it took me a week. Like, I know it sounds absolutely asinine, and I haven't shared that with many people, but the idea of the thing was 3 years in the making. So let's be clear on that. Okay. I have a really good batting average with LOIs. That's for another time and another place. How did you not, in that 10-month, 11-month span, how did you not lose faith, or did you lose faith? And then what did you tell yourself in those moments?
That's wild. 1 week. I have a friend, Cassie, and she bought a fencing business in Ohio, and it was the first business that she looked at on Biz by Sell.
Yeah.
And I thought that was crazy, but you in 1 week is even crazier.
Well, here's what's crazy. I got it under LOI. We didn't close, but I actually bought the other business the broker had.
Oh, wow.
So I was 2 for 2 out of the gate. Yeah.
Got it. So my path, initially I was looking for bookkeeping only, and there's just not many firms that come up for sale that are like, have a team and they're over a certain, you know, revenue and profit size. Like, typically you're probably going to look for something that's over 250,000 a year in profit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
There just weren't a lot. So I had one that fell apart at the 11th hour, and I had to kind of go back and restart the engine and keep searching, and ultimately became more open-minded to including tax services as well. And as soon as I started talking to Steve, who's the prior owner of Apple Tree, so I bought Apple Tree Business Services. As soon as I started talking to him, it just felt different. It felt like a good quality firm, and it felt like, you know, we could get along well. So I think that's key is, you know, as you're going through this process, when you find one that's quality, you have to move fast. Otherwise, if you hesitate, you know, the good ones will go.
100%. And when you went through that first due diligence process, were there any big red flags that came up, or did it get through that process pretty easily?
So with the one that fell apart, there were some, you know, like cultural differences.
Did you try to convince yourself that they weren't a big deal because you wanted to get a deal done, or did you
I think it would have been okay.
grounded?
No, I still think it would have been okay. The big ones were the team was pretty religious, and I'm not. It wasn't. It was decently profitable. It wasn't highly profitable, and I was overpaying a little bit on the first one to get in the game. Ultimately, what made that one fall apart was right before we're getting ready to close, the SBA lender said, "Can you send us interim financials?" And the profitability dipped for a couple months, and it was during the summer. And you know, they're like, "Why'd the profitability go down?" And he said, "Well, we bill by the hour. People are on vacation. I can't bill as much," which I think is pretty logical. And it wasn't a big dip, but the SBA lender totally changed their assumptions and like wanted me to come with like 40% cash after that, and it wouldn't work, you know.
Yeah.
So those are kind of like yellowish flags, but I ended up referring that deal to somebody else, and they paid, you know, 20% more than I was going to. So yeah. I still think it was a good firm. So anyways, fast forward, start my outreach again. I'm talking to a lot of owners. And then as I talked to Steve from Apple Tree, We had good rapport right away. He had great numbers and financials right away. And he wanted to find his buyer before going into the next tax season. So I started talking to him in September, October, and ultimately we closed in September, and we closed December 31st. So like right at the end of the calendar year. So that's how it all went.
So you close.
Yeah.
And then you get installed. How were those first, how was that first 30 days?
Yeah. A lot of people say do no harm, right? Like don't mess anything up the first few months, like just listen. And it's hard to do that, right? When you're like, why do we do it that way? And you're like, is there a better way? So, but I stepped right into busy season, right? Tax season. And they're like, we don't hire, we don't change anything. We don't do anything different during tax season. Like just sit there, right? So I did a lot of observing, of just how do we price things? How do we process clients, our software, our tools? I started to take over the sales process probably 90 days in. I wanted to hire, and I kind of got vetoed on that by a couple of our key employees until after April 15th. So I was doing some billable consulting work in the meantime, but I was really just kind of observing on the accounting side. And then after April 15th, it was like, okay, let's, update some of these systems, let's hire and, kind of accelerate some more growth.
Because I know exactly what you're talking about, how important it is, a new owner, CEO, now you're the sales guy, to listen to those key employees. Don't take everything for what they say as honest truth or whatever. How do you deal with those personalities and those people that are entrenched, right? I have guys in my company that have been here for 25 years.
I think a couple of things worked well for us. Previous owners stuck around. So, our initial agreement was he'd stay until May 1st, right? So they feel really comfortable knowing that he's still on the team, very active. The other thing, we had a consistent narrative, and it was true, right? He said, Patrick is a strategic buyer. He has to leave things in place and he needs you. I could have sold to a regional firm that would have like cut half this team and got rid of the office, right? And right, so like that was true. And so I was really intentional to just like listen, take notes, and like even like the smallest things I would try to follow through on, if I don't know, like people didn't have a dual monitor at home and sometimes work from home, and I was like, done, like we'll pay for it, like don't worry about the cost, just little things like that to try to build some credibility and hear what's going on. And I think over time, like people start to trust you, and you go from there.
So as you look back now, and we'll get into acquisition 2 and 3 in just a minute, but as you look back now, we'll start here with the first question. What was easier than you thought 18 months later buying your first business?
I think those first 3 or 4 months were easier because I bought a quality firm, like I think I'm a resilient person and like was ready for the stress, and I still had that, but it wasn't near the level of like pulling my hair out, like working 24/7 that I was strapped in for, And I think that's just due to the quality firm that our team had built and having the previous owner around. So that was easier.
What was harder?
The harder, leading accountants is hard. I'm used to leading sales teams. They're like ADHD and thrive on change and competitive. And, every new client is a win. Leading accountants, I really had to learn how to like slow down, get their buy-in, explain why we're doing something. And even then, when you change things, and we all talked about it, some of them still just don't like change, right?
I just had a long talk with my office manager this morning, who gave me a book. I think maybe I wasn't as locked in my stealth of the crappy week I had last week. She gave me a book about managing people, and it's a great book. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to read it. but I'm really realizing that each component in the business, they came from different places.
Mhm.
They've been in business in different places. Like, meaning, as simple as the service HVAC guy and the install HVAC guy are two totally different humans that
Yeah.
are in different businesses,
Yep.
and the office people and the sales.
Yeah.
Everybody needs a different version of you, and you have to know which person is in each department.
Right. Right.
That's been like the hard part, because I'm laughing because I know sales. I can do sales. That's easy. They chew on metal and drink Red Bull. That's easy.
Yes.
But you come into the accountant all rah, they're going to be like, "Hey, bro, I'm good. Back
Yeah.
up."
Yes.
I love that. So, what happened for these other two, the second and third, to come up? And did you, I'm just interested to hear how you found it in the first place.
Before I bought my first one, I think a lot of people know Nick Huber in the self-storage world, right? Who like buys a bunch of self-storage, makes a little tweak, refis his cash, and just moves on. And he's just like, buy. And I thought the same thing. I was like, I can buy a bunch of accounting firms, make some incremental improvements, and like roll them up together. 90 days in, I was like, okay, that strategy will not work. And now I understand why. And I was like, I'm going to be very picky for any additional acquisitions. And then lo and behold, I did two more. The first one came about through our association. So we're an association of like 300 other firm owners that share best practices and, what software they use. So the second one was like a sister practice. Like they knew us, similar tools, similar pricing. It was an easy fit. They approached me at conference. The third one, I was like browsing online and I saw this firm for sale, and right away I knew it was different. It was like modern virtual firm with a strong niche, including fractional CFO services, right? You just don't see those come up for sale. Most of what's for sale is like old school tax shops. So with that one, I reached out, didn't hear anything, reached out again, saw they were based in Denver. I'm from Colorado, and I was like, I'm going to be in town next week. Like, let's meet. And like, finally they replied, and was able to kind of like swoop in right before they went under LOI with somebody else. So that's kind of how the third one went down.
How did you finance 2 and 3?
2 was a seller note. So, previous owner is doing like a 4-year seller note. The third one was another SBA, partially financed by the SBA, some of my cash and some seller note.
Can you, for anybody that's listening that doesn't know what an SBA loan is, can you just give your brief overview of what it is?
Yep. So easy example, let's say you go buy a, home audiovisual company and it's $1 million purchase price. Typically, you're going to put 5 to 10% cash down. The seller is going to hold 10 to 20%, and then the SBA will finance the rest. SBA will typically finance up to, I think, 75% over 10 years. And, it's a really friendly debt, and it's the best debt that you can get for a business that's typically risky. It is, kind of a pain to do. I tell people it's twice the work of a home mortgage, so like just get ready for a lot of paperwork. But otherwise, like this isn't possible for like everyday people, that don't have investors. So that's
do you have after 2 and 3 in a shorter period of time, do you have your eyes on another one, or is this stabilized? Are you trying to get to a place where you're incrementally growing the companies, or you're open to an opportunity if it comes up?
I'm open, but I keep getting pickier on what else we might acquire, right? It'd have to be, a firm that uses QuickBooks Online, probably uses UltraTax for tax, has monthly subscription style billing, has, similar pricing, similar type of clients, right? So like that lens just continues to get tighter on like what else I'd be willing to acquire, because we're growing pretty well organically, and the acquisitions are just a ton of work, to integrate. And
is it just you, or do you have like a COO? Do you have another team, or is it just you running these 3 companies?
So I'm the only owner, but our accounting managers are, key employees, and they kind of manage their client relationships. And then we have really good staff accountants that have been with us for a while, and we have, good people in payroll. But so I have kind of a little bit of a leadership team. We have fantastic onboarding and, COO, but it's just me as owner.
Do you find that lonely at all, that you don't really have anybody else to talk to and a counterpart? I have 5 other owners, so I'm just curious.
Right now, no. Couple things go into that. There's a big community on Twitter, tax Twitter, and like there's some masterminds in there. And then the association that Steve was in, there's 300 firm owners, and then within that, there's a small group of 10 that he had been in a mastermind with, and I took his seat. So I get
Oh,
feedback from them. They know the firm. We're on a Zoom call every month, and we do a conference in person once a year. So I get a lot of feedback from them. In the first 4 months, I hired a coach who had been like a COO of a large cloud accounting firm. And I'm a big believer in that. So it can still be a little lonely, but it's not quite like
yeah.
I'm on an island.
No, that's great. So the question is, what does your wife think of it now after 3 acquisitions?
She'd still say, I don't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
I think she's excited for me. I think she sees me working harder than I have, since we've been together. Right. So like, she's excited for the upside. She's excited for the future. At the same time, she's like, there's times where you need to turn it off or like be present as a dad, but she's super supportive. So all in all,
for anybody out there, what were the levers that you think that the top levers you pushed to grow organically, like you're growing in your business? Like, where do you think people should focus on, even if it's in real estate or businesses? Where have you found the most upside?
Yeah, previous owner would pick up 1 new client a month. We averaged closer to 4 per month. The low-hanging fruit is, making sure you have a bunch of great Google reviews. So we took that from like 5 to 25 or something like that. Big call to action button on your website with a Calendly link, if you're in professional services, modernizing the brand a bit, just being fast when any lead comes in. That's a big complaint that accountants aren't responsive, so like any new lead, I'm pretty quick. And just having a structured sales process, right? So we have initial call where we do intake, kind of hear what they have going on, address the pain points. We get some info so we can scope it out. And then we have a second call where we, give them a price proposal on that call, and make a recommendation. So, it's like Google reviews, calls to action, like moving quick, and just following up with people.
And I know this could change week to week depending on how the week goes, but are you in this are you buying many businesses to hold it for 20 years plus? Are you looking to buy a couple and then exit and retire in 6 years or 5 years? Like, how do you view it as you sit on your 3rd acquisition?
My vision from the start was to grow the accounting firm to about 5 million in revenue and to add a consulting division. So we're on pace for that. We've added a consulting division. And then after that, then we'd start to buy other types of small businesses.
Yeah.
And the accounting firm would serve as like, the kind of the mothership that creates cash flow, creates relationships, creates intelligence for us to know what other types of companies that are worth buying, right? So ideally we get to that point and then, we could go buy this commercial maintenance company over here, a landscaping company there, or a SaaS company over there, right?
No, I think it's so important. I think as I get older and as I'm the CEO now, I don't have any fun calls anymore. It's only with bookkeepers and lawyers and the nuts and bolts, because if you don't have proper books, if you don't have proper contracts, if you aren't clear on where the business is headed, the foundational aspects of it, it's going to get really wobbly. Yes. And I think all my conversations used to be about sales and marketing, and now they're the other way around. Yeah. And that's stuff that you find the right team and you lend it to. So me personally, as I told you on Twitter, this was the first year I had a bookkeeper. It was life-changing. You have no idea. I would procrastinate for 2 months to do my taxes, and then it would take me a month.
Yeah.
Now this was done in about 7 minutes, if not less. And so it was the greatest money I've ever spent in my life. So, and now we are dealing with the same thing in the business, just knowing your numbers, knowing the breakdowns and how to structure stuff, man. I'm sure you see it every day with clients. Yeah. When they finally have it, the aha moment.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, there's so many aha moments with like, a flooring guy that we're working with that, his margin was declining over the last 4 years. And we just pointed it out to him, and that allowed us to dig in on us pricing, right? And you look at cash flow conversion, right? Like, okay, how much deposit are you taking, and like, when are you taking installment payments, right? Like those things all matter a lot, right? Or if you're a growing small business, tax planning becomes really important, because like first year you might not be profitable, but then after that, if you have a huge tax surprise, like it just sucks and it'll stall out your growth, right? So all of those things can just be like total game changers if you have quality accounting and somebody that's working with you through that.
So before we get you out of here, if somebody's looking for a proper bookkeeper or tax accountant, what are the telltale signs to know that you have a good one?
I'd say your bookkeeping needs to be closed every month. Like, so we're talking here, it's, February 27th. Ideally, January would have been closed by now. January is tricky because it's year end, 1099, etc. So bookkeeping needs to be closed every month. It needs to be accurate. You need to have somebody that is talking to you, at least quarterly. We talk to our clients monthly, but at least quarterly to stay on top of your quarterly estimates to see what questions you have. And in a perfect world, they do year-end tax planning with you in November and December, rather than like, bad surprises in April.
Yeah. And I tell mine, because I'm probably her easiest client. She just checks in on a couple things. And I'm like, all you have to do is tell me that something's wrong, and then that's when I'm going to pay attention. But if we're just going good, then we're good. I think it's so important. So if people want to find your company, they want to find you on Twitter, how would they do that?
Yeah, so we're Appletree Business Services. Our URL is appletreebusiness.com. And then I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, Patrick Dichter, so Dichter. And would love to connect with anyone in this space, and always love meeting small business owners.
Awesome. Guys, if you got some value from this episode, send it to a friend, and we'll see you next time.